afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Ned Hearn. I was fortunate enough to be Patricia Patty Arnold's son-in-law, and even more fortunate as a result of that, or because of that connection, to be Linda's husband. Louder? How's this? Okay, volume is up. So if you, like many of us, use hearing aids and you need to turn the volume of the hearing aids down, please go ahead. Don't worry about it. So we are here today to celebrate the amazing life of Patricia Patty Arnold. And I recognize, of course, many faces in the audience. Some I don't, but I know that you have a long history and a long connection with Patty. She was an incredible woman, full of life, vigor, incredible determination, and no sense of doubt ever about what she wanted to do, and no sense of doubt about inviting people in a very encouraging way, in a supportive way, to join her in her activities. And many of you have had experiences with that, so you know exactly what I'm saying. You're going to hear from a number of people today, so I'm keeping my comments really short. Between each of the different people who are presenting and each of the persons who likely will say things during the community sharing, you'll get some sense of the fabric that was Patty. She was many things over many years, wearing many different hats and having many different skills. So it would be very difficult in the short time frame to have a fully woven fabric of who she was and her life. But you'll get a very strong sense of it from all the different people presenting. And certainly it was an experience for me, an honor for me to be involved in her life for so many years. And I didn't get volunteered as much as some of you may have, but I certainly did experience it on occasion. Fortunately, I worked very hard. That's something Patty really respected, and so she often gave me my space because I was working very hard. And that was a key for her. Did you work hard? Okay, you're good. Particularly if what you're working hard for is something worth doing for the community and for your environment and for the people in your lives. So we're going to start the program with a song, and it's going to be conducted by Patty's granddaughter, Ariel, and Ariel's wonderful circle of singing ladies. And I invite them up now to be able to share with us their wonderful voices and the lyrics that they're going to be singing.
That could take me
you, ladies. That was very lovely. I get the benefit of hearing that their lovely voices many a Tuesday evening when they're doing their women's singing circle at our house. Merlin and I hang out all the time. We're going to now move on to an opening blessing ceremony with Kate Bowland, who many of you also know, given her history in the community was in terms of birthing, and for that matter, she was a birthing person for Ariel, who just led her wonderful choir. Please give us the blessing.
Thank you. I want to welcome you all. And I need help doing this. I was asked to open sacred space, and I've only done it in really small circles in privacy. But what I would ask you all is to stand up with me, because I need your help. And as we go through the 4 directions, we're going to turn to them. So, is this south? Wait. Okay. So we're going to turn to the south. Welcome the winds of the south, great serpent. Wrap us in your coils of love and light. Teach us to let go of the past as you shed your skin. Teach us to walk gently on the earth. Teach us the beauty way. To the winds of the east. To the winds of the east, I welcome the condor and the eagle. May we fly wing-tipped wingtip with the Great Spirit. I welcome the winds of the north, hummingbird, grandmother, grandfathers, the ancient ones. We ask you to come to our fires and warm your hands. We ask you to give us your wisdom and whisper it on the wind. Welcome, the winds of the north. Welcome, the winds of the west, where the sun goes to rest, where death goes. Teach us the lessons of letting go. And I want to thank Mother Earth and for allowing us to gather here to bless all of her children, the plant people, the stone people, the 4-legged ones, the 2-legged ones, the creepy crawlies, the furred ones, the fins and the winged ones. Thank you. We want to welcome the Father Sky, Mother Moon, and all the star nations. We want to be grateful for this event that brings us together to be able to sing and be grateful for all the children. And I want to thank our inner souls, our spirits, our hearts, that we all may be open to love and love one another as we suffer through this loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. That was beautiful and very fitting for Patty's spirit, I think. We're now going to have a number of presenters, and we're going to start with Drew Glover, who is currently the president of the UNA Santa Cruz County chapter, which was founded by Patty shortly after she moved to Santa Cruz in the mid-'80s. And Drew's also the executive director of Project Pollinate, and he's going to share with us his views and thoughts about Patty. Drew, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that My name is Drew Glover, and I am a staff member here at the Resource Center for Nonviolence. I'm a founder and director of Project Pollinate. I sit on the city's Commission for the Prevention of Violence Against Women, and proud to be the president of the United Nations Association of Santa Cruz County. I tell you this because a large part of what I've been able to accomplish and what I will accomplish in the future is thanks to Pat. She was one of my mentors and someone who consistently supported my drive and vision when I returned to Santa Cruz in 2012. I first met Pat at the 2013 Juneteenth celebration. I was introduced by Dennis Etler, another of my mentors and friends who sat and continues to sit on the UNA board. At that time, I had no idea what that organization was about. Immediately after meeting Pat, though, she engaged me in that certain particular Pat way we all know and love, asking me questions about my goals, almost interviewing me about what I was interested in. I told her about my dreams of equality, sustainability, and connection. I shared her idea with me about my idea with her, I should say, about a new organization that could act as a catalyst and build a stronger community while protecting our pollinators at the same time. The rest is history, right? After joining the board of the UNA, Pat almost immediately began grooming me, sharing responsibilities and strengthening the skills I would need to eventually ascend to the position of president. And I was honored when she nominated me for that position. The UNA, an organization that she had led with her skills, nourished with her love, and supported with her dedication for over 20 years, she provided me with the opportunity to travel to our nation's capital multiple times, to engage with leaders from all over the world, to expand my perspective and broaden my understandings about the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Convention to Eliminate Discrimination Against Women, or the CEDAW principles, which I'm now actively working to have our city support and adopt. Of course, she did not stop there. To ensure that I would have the flexibility to be effective as effective as possible, Pat extended an offer for me to work with her at her Blue Map company. Some of you may know what that is. They're the little blue and yellow maps that span from here to Carmel. Just amazing that she put that together in general. But with that job, I was able to earn money and at the same time not be bound to a desk or a cappuccino maker. She provided me with the opportunity to be financially confident and focus on the community at the same time, which I found out that that's the reason why she started the company in the first place, during the heat of her activism career. Not only did she support my drive to work in the community, she helped me to make my vision of Project Pollinate a reality. While still the sitting president, Pat motioned to adopt Project Pollinate underneath the fiscal umbrella of the UNA, thus allowing us to access their EIN, the ability to set up a bank account, and become eligible for nonprofit opportunities. An organization that started as a concept in my head now has a team of over 10 dedicated community members comprised of intergenerational, interracial students, educators, and professionals. In November, we were able to get the City Council to enact a 6-month ban on Roundup, including a staff report on organic alternatives and instructions to reevaluate our integrated pest management policy as a whole, and Pat had a major hand in making all of that possible. Now, as the UNA marches forward into the future with a foundation that Pat built and the vision that she shared with us, a future where women are equal, where we work towards true equity in our societies and work diligently to make sure that one day we can live in a world without war, hunger, poverty, or oppression. So, from the UNA, we invite you to join us. Consider becoming a member of the UNA. Attend some of our meetings, which are the second Wednesday of every month, here at the Resource Center at 6:30. And join us as we celebrate International Women's Day this 24th, so next Saturday here from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Resource Center. Learn more about the organization and why Pat dedicated the final chapters of her life to making sure the work would continue. I know how lucky I am to have her in my life. We were all lucky to have her in our lives. A fierce and fiery energy contained in a small package, she was a role model, not just for young women, but for all of us. She's a shining example of the power and impact one person can have. Her inspiration and energy lives on in all of us, but now the responsibility is ours. The responsibility to continue carrying the torch and shine the light on the injustices in our shared world. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, It isn't enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it, one must work at it. So I leave you with that quote and some questions to ponder in the quiet moments of contemplation that we all have at some point in the day. What will you do to honor Pat's memory? How will you actively work to make the world a better place? And the real question is, how can we do it together? We love you, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Very well expressed, and I think really underscores Pat's legacy, which was more than what she did while she was alive, but also the fire, the inspiration, the encouragement she gave others to continue doing that as she's passed and long after she's passed. That's really one of her major gifts to all of us. So thank you, Drew, and thank you, Patty. We're going to now move on to a more personal side, but we'll get back to the local and the activist side as we go through the program. We're now going to be listening to or hearing from Barb and Cam, who are, that's right, thank you, Sven Cam. Yeah, throw his last name around a whole lot. Who are the kids, the adult children of Sheila, who was Pat's sister. And so we'll get some personal insights in terms of their experience with Patty. Please.
Hi, I'm Barb Cam Kinlan.
And I'm Sven Cam.
And I know that I'm going to start crying if I talk about my wonderful aunt, so I'm going to read a poem by Henry Van Dyke. Gone from my sight. I am standing upon a seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the open ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her, and at length she hangs like a speck, just where the clouds and the sky meet the sea and mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as when she left my side. She is just as able to bear a load of living freight as she was to her desired port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment that someone says, "There she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes." And that is done.
I just want to say some brief comments about Pat. I always loved Patty. She was a great force of nature, and she had so much love in her. And there's one story in particular. Her political activities were always an inspiration. And there was this UN event that she didn't want to pay to go to, but she had political aspirations. She needed to get stuff done there. And so she showed up and she snuck in somehow, and she's there talking everybody's ear off, and because she couldn't afford the dinner, she's eating off their plates. She's just like, "Okay, so tell me more about it." So it was really, that's a Pat story to me. And there's also the real fun side of Pat, and she shared a fun singing lifestyle, and she shared it with my mom as well, who was her sister. And there was a song that they would sing, and it went something like this. I was walking down the street one day when a billboard met my eye. The advertisements posted there would make one laugh and cry. The rain and hail that came that night washed it half away. The other half remaining there just made that billboard say, "Oh, smoke a Coca-Cola, drink ketchup cigarettes, see Lily and Russell wrestle with a box of oysterettes. Pork and beans will meet tonight in a Finnish fight. Professor Smith will lecture on smoleosis bright. Old rum is good for horses, the best we have in town. Castoria cures the measles, just pay $5 down. Teeth extracted without pain, cost but half a dime. Anger salts selling now, carload at a time.
I'm impressed, I never would remember all that. Great job. Next, we're going to hear from a longtime friend of Patty's, who is also very involved with her in many of the political and local activities that went on. I guess you could refer to her as a UNA activist. Jean Perano, would you please come up and share your thoughts and words with us?
Below or something. We'll try to raise the bar. It's really hard for me to speak other than one-on-one, so bear with me. I assured Linda when she said they might have a timer, they didn't want too many people going over 5 minutes. I told them with me it's not a problem. And this is a little disjointed, and I hope I don't break down in tears because I already did that earlier. But I gotta say, I love this photo. So I was trying to remember when I first met Pat, and the best I could recall was somewhere in the 1980s at Pat's house. She put on a fundraiser for the People's World newspaper. And the guest speaker, the invited speaker, was Angela Davis. So it was quite a great event. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but I did. And for me, the loss of a friend necessitates reflection, because in our normal day-to-day encounters, we don't often pause to savor shared experiences. And on my short list of valued friendships, Pat is really at the top. So here's a brief overall of some of the remembrances of Pat, and it really kind of vignettes almost. Mostly her unwavering support for organized labor, born most likely from the workers' struggles of the 1930s, and like Pat, was a force to be reckoned with. And also how every Labor Day, at the Labor Day picnic, the UNA set up a massive dessert table while Pat sweet-talked people into joining or renewing their memberships. And that line between being an entrepreneur and being an activist was all of the same garment, so to speak. We all know that saying no to Pat wasn't an option. And talk about the art of the deal, she had it down. And some of us were also the recipients of Pat's map sale negotiations. And in my case, Pat knew how much I liked and still do hanging out at the Poet and the Patriot pub. So I got the benefit of the in-kind, $187 of a free bar tab. It's a good thing I live close to downtown, because with the capacity I really don't have for alcohol, I walked home quite a bit. And a bit of levity here about Pat's driving. Assorted dents and Pat's parking skills, all too obvious. And I remember how she and I drove to San Francisco for the day quite a number of years ago. It was for a special socialist conference. But on the return trip, I was driving her car, I think it was Highway 680, and she grumbled I was driving too slow. And my reply was, I was just doing the speed limit. And one thing we shared in common was a love of gardening. More exactly, an obsession with weeding, which on Pat's property was no small task, especially on the hillside behind the upper property, and also the long paved road leading to the back of her house. Like my driving, Pat encouraged me to speed up my weeding. This past year and a half or so, I go up weekly to Pat's house and give her a hand. It was always just doing small chores or bringing up groceries, especially from Trader Joe's, always trying to find the perfect chocolate dessert. Never quite find the one she remembered. But she was a big chocolate fan. And really over the years, having worked for really a lot of folks, I can say hands down, Pat was really the fairest and most appreciative person I've ever worked for. One of the fringe benefits of being close to someone is to also get a sense of their family and how present and available they are to their loved one. In Pat's case, even more so as her health declined, they were all there for Pat, without question, especially Linda which her family knew, Pat was really always there for them. As Linda said in Pat's obituary, they promised to carry the torch. May that be an example for us all.
Thank you, Jean. It was lovely, very personal, and I think very much in touch with how important friends were for Patty and for her, and she for them. So thanks for sharing those very close times and experiences. And yeah, she was a fast driver. Next, we're going to have another family member who is going to perhaps read a poem. David Stahl, Patty's grandson-in-law, I guess would be the technical term, is going to come up and share his thoughts about Patty. And you coming too, Owen? Mm-hmm. Oh, great. So the great-grandson, Owen, is also coming up.
Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? Just gonna stand there. All right, see if we can get through this. With my wingman, Owen. Well, the first thing I must share with you is Pat's favorite guidance to newlyweds, which she distinctly advised to Ariel and me during our wedding ceremony. So when you find yourself at an impasse, she said, upset with each other, having nothing else to say, do what Chuck and I always did. Take off all of your clothes and get naked. The argument won't seem so important anymore. Pat certainly always had a way with words. Pat was a marvelous storyteller, and I loved listening to the chronicles of her life, from her prestigious college experience rubbing elbows with the East Coast elite, to moving to Simi Valley and living in an orange grove that is now a freeway. Literally, she and Chuck were displaced by Caltrans so that the state could build an 8-lane behemoth that today carries 250,000 cars a day. From orange groves to interstates, Pat witnessed a huge amount of change in 92 years. Pat was 2 years old when Charles Lindbergh made the first transatlantic flight in the spirit of St. Louis. Today, we are planning a mission to Mars, and self-driving cars are legal in California. This, by the way, as Jeannie mentioned, would have been a great addition to Pat's garage. As many of you know, Pat drove herself around into her late 80s, refusing to stop even after several accidents, the final of which could have been fatal. Thank goodness Pat was okay, but she was cited by the CHP and found at fault for the accident. Thank goodness Pat was okay, but she was cited by the CHP and found at fault for the accident. Oh my, did that put a bee in her bonnet. Pat went on to fight the citation from the local level to the state and then to the federal authorities, taking months and writing 12 letters and making as many phone calls. She insisted that it was only because of her age that she was found at fault, not because of her Mario Andretti driving tendencies. Lo and behold, to all of our amazement, almost 5 months after the accident, Pat received a letter from none other than U.S. Rep. Anna Eshoo and another from State Rep. Mark Stone apologizing for her ordeal and notifying her that the citation had been dropped. Pat had used the system she knew so well, the system of protest and government, as well as her expert skills of activism, to fight for what she thought was right. And, as she did so often, she won. Indeed, Pat's activism is legendary, whether it be her unending energy and dedication of time, or to her monetary contributions. The number of organizations she supported is remarkable. The Sierra Club, California State Park, Center for Nonviolence, Resource Center, United Way, UNICEF, Democratic National Committee, and of course, as we have heard, United Nations Association. We have all helped Pat at the UNA store selling goodies in support of her lifelong love of the UN, or have staffed a booth along Pacific Avenue during one of her many events. Of all that Pat was, however, it is the position of matriarch that is her greatest legacy. Yeah. Ariel and I are so proud to have the honor of raising our 2 sons in the house that she and Chuck built. Owen and Quinn, who's in that house at this very moment with the babysitter, are a rare generation that can not only say they knew their great-grandmother, but saw her every day. The beaming smile that illuminated Pat's face each evening as we stopped in to say hello, or bring her food, always brought me back to the present, and reminded me of what is most important in life, family. Pat, indeed, was a remarkable woman on so many levels, but it is her love and support and energy and enthusiasm that touched not only her extraordinary family, but all of you. And look at you. We have people from all walks of life, all stations of economy, all backgrounds and experience sitting here today. And this would make Pat so proud. This gathering would be one of great joy for her. The people, the music, the food, the love, the children, The legacy of a woman who forever fighting for her cause, whether it be family, friends, civil rights, environment, freedom, or just making sure the little person wasn't left out. And so here is to you, Patricia Arnold, your grandson, your great-grandson, for all the love and generosity you have given and shared with us. We thank you and will forever appreciate and remember you. We miss and love you dearly.
Thank you, David. That was very poignant and a great listing of Pat's involvements and contributions and her presence in the community as well as the family. Thank you for sharing that. I thought you were going to do a poem. That's much better. Thank you for doing that. Now I have a very, very special event happening. And yes, better come up on this side with the steps. Much safer. Pat was a member of the Raging Grannies, who are now coming up on the stage.
Hi, I'm Jan Harwood. I just think that Pat was such a great granny. She always came to rehearsal whenever she could, which is very unusual. And she sang with us even when she couldn't come to rehearsal, which is very normal. Great voice. She had a very, very good voice, and she knew all the old songs that we use for our protests songs. And it just happens that she was the very first person I met when I moved to Santa Cruz when I was 65. I finally was able to move over here where my heart lived. But I didn't know anybody except my daughter who lived here. And so I took a class in computers, just general computers, at the senior center, and Pat was in the class. And of course, immediately she caught my eye, and before you know it, I was helping her set up the UNA store. She invited me to her house that weekend to help her get some things ready for the store. She had some old furniture that needed painting, to a desk and a chair or two. And it was going to be like a party, and so I was looking forward to that. And I got there and found out that I was the only one. And I painted all afternoon. And then I became the clerk at the store for the next 6 months. Well, anyway, she and I became very, very good friends over the years, and I'm so happy to have her as a granny. And she loved my songs, the ones that I write, and loved singing them. And one of the things I'm happiest about is that a whole bunch of us went up to see her a few weeks ago. And she sang with us, and she was right on. In spite of her recent stroke, she was able to sing, and she remembered the words. It was just wonderful. We had such a good time, all of us. Well, we have a couple of songs here that you all don't know about.
It's very new.
Because I wrote it for her birthday at one point. That's fabulous. And I think we'll start with Song for Patty, which was written in honor of her roast a few years ago. When Patty when she has you in her sight. Oh Lord, you're like a mouse in a bear trap. Daddy's got you dead to rights. She has a job for you to do, some worthy job you're proud to do. No use in twisting or resisting, you'll volunteer before she's through. When Patricia comes around, no place to hide, she'll hunt you down. And soon you'll see your name on her roster when Patty Arnold comes to town. For she's a mover and she's a shaker, and when at last she meets her maker, she'll say you need a UNA shop here in heaven. We're gonna just a job for you. Bustling in, but when she has you in her sights, oh Lord, you're like a mouse in a bear trap, 'cause Daddy's got you dead to rights. Yeah, this other one is a little gentler. You all, you know the song, my gal? I can't sing it a little bit. They call her fabulous Pat, and an indefatigable cat. When good things need doing, she's got something brewing, we're sure of that. She hasn't a moment to nap, 'cause she's put Santa Cruz on the map. She hustles and bustles wherever she tussles. It's done ASAP. When the UN was devised, Patty soon realized they needed some backup. She set out to pack up a few supplies. She opened a shop on the fly, and everyone soon went to buy UNESCO cards, Tic Tacs, and ethnical knickknacks to please one's eye. A musical family has Pat, from ballads to opera to scat. All have golden throats, and with very few notes they can knock you flat. When Patty has put on her hat, the wealth-raging grannies don't chat. We sing of abuses, we don't make excuses. We all stand Pat, 'cause we love her. We all love Pat. And this is this is all. I mean, we were only supposed to sing two in the first one. I kid you not, the planet's getting hot. We might pretend it's not, but the world is on the spot. We're really in the soup, and here's the latest scoop. We'll soon be underwater, 'cause the planet's getting hotter. It's true, yes it's true. The planet's hot, we can't pretend it's not. Whatever ever shall we do? Do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. Let's build an ark in San Lorenzo Park. We'll build it in the dark so we won't attract a shark. We'll furnish our sails to withstand the mighty gales. We'll sail it on the water 'cause the planet's getting hotter. We'll float in our boat The planet's hot, we can't pretend it's not. Whatever ever can we do? Do not despair, there's still some time to spare. We'll save the ozone layer, we can do it if we dare. Let's make a resolution to banish all pollution. Make a set of rules to dispense with fossil fuels. Let's do, me and you. The planet's hot, we won't pretend it's not. Let's go and raise a hollow balloon. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. That was lovely, wonderful, and fun. And we could hear Pat's voice singing with you. We're moving on to another gentleman who was involved with Patty in activist activities, particularly on the labor front. Jeffrey Smelberg is going to be saying a few words. Well, okay, so that's so much for my inability to read without glasses.
Well, it's a delight to be in this room with all these friends of Pat. Of course, it is a sad thing that she's no longer here with us, but one thing that I always really appreciate about gatherings like this is this person that I've had known for decades. Now I'm learning a whole lot more about her that I never knew existed, of different parts of her life that I didn't interact with her on. And so for some of you who were not union members or involved in the labor movement, maybe my few comments will give you a sense of another aspect of her life that maybe you weren't aware of. So I'm trying to remember when I first met Pat. It was probably at a labor rally, because she always showed up whenever she was asked. She always showed up to the labor demonstrations or the picket lines. And I think I met her about 5 minutes before I became a UNA member. And shortly thereafter, I was recruited as the labor liaison to the UNA board. And she said, "We have to come to one meeting every year." I was not very active in the UNA, but I did try to represent a labor perspective there. So another way that I was involved with her was the Real Work Labor Film Festival, which is going on in its 17th year, I believe, this year. And, Pat got involved in that quite early on and drew the whole UNA into it as a sponsor of one of the events. And they're continuing that tradition this year, even though Pat's not at the helm. And Pat was quite regular at coming to the meetings for many years. She always wanted to be sure that the UNA was sponsoring an event that really demonstrated some aspect of international labor, some labor struggle far away around the world that, in that United Nations perspective. Of course, the kinds of programs that she really appreciated the types of programs that we tried to do, not just, oh, how bad are sweatshop working conditions in Thailand or someplace, but highlighting a struggle where the working people actually got together and through United Action made some difference and improved their lives. So Pat was definitely on board with that. Gene Pirano talked about Pat's involvement with the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council, our annual Labor Day picnic, usually at the Branciforte Park. And Pat would draw other people to help her provide this big dessert table. And I didn't know about the membership drive that went on at the same time. And so I only know Pat from recent history, and I know she led a very full life in other places. And I remember back when I was in high school, did I learn anything about labor history? No, I only learned about the history from the point of view of the corporation titans and so forth. And somehow Pat made a connection to the struggles of working people early in her life. And I think it probably must have at least been encouraged by her attendance at the Edgewood School in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I'd heard from somebody else, it's probably where she learned a good class analysis in this country, which is kind of rare analysis. And so I wish that all young people could have that kind of education that she had, which carried her through her whole life. And I knew Pat, or she knew me in my role as a member of the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. But in her honor, and thinking back to her early involvement in learning about the labor movement and understanding the ideals of communism and so forth, I'm wearing in her honor my wobbly shirt, the Industrial Workers of the World. And also I think it's quite appropriate today, and she would applaud it if she saw me, that of course I'm bringing my petition, the rent control petition. This is for you, Pat.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That was really informative and gave us some more insights to Pat's many-sided personality and life. Next, we're pleased and honored to be able to introduce and bring up to the stage Fred Keeley, longtime representative for various political offices in this area and a strong contributor to the community. Fred, would you please share with us your thoughts on Pat?
Family members and friends of Pat's, thank you very much. I apologize, but will imagine that I stand in for an awful lot of elected officials who, for a very long time, city government, county government, state government, U.S. Congress, who have represented this area, who have had experiences similar to mine. So I will, if you don't mind, stand in their shoes this afternoon. One of the things that I think all of my colleagues would say is, you are at the memorial service for a political person when everybody gets applause after they've made their remarks. Not standard fare, shall we say. My colleagues and I were in the habit of receiving two kinds of calls from Pat. They had exactly the same two words that began the conversation, but depending upon the nature of the conversation, they were either presented A-B or B-A. And what they went like this: will you? That was nice. The other ones were, "You will." You were pretty sure that was a call from Pat. And the right answer to either one was yes, of course. Why continue through it when you knew that's where it was going to be anyway? Maybe this is right and maybe this is wrong, but every community has a center of the political spectrum, and that is the place business gets done, is wherever you decide the center is. But where the center is a function of where the edges are in any given community. So to give you an example, in Santa Cruz County, I am probably, when I served in the legislature, and thank you very much for that privilege, but when I was served in the legislature, I was considered here in Santa Cruz a moderate to progressive Democrat. Every day when I would go to Sacramento and go to the Capitol to represent you, I was considered a communist. I didn't change during a 163-mile drive. What changed was the relative position of where is the center, where is that? And in this community, Pat was one of those people, and not one of a whole bunch of people, one of those people who made sure that the center was dragged significantly to the left. And that is no mean feat. That is no mean feat in any community, regardless of how large, how small, whether it's Republican or Democrat, Libertarian or Vegetarian. The ability to move that center is real political power that does not come by accident. It comes by every day in every way being engaged in your community from a belief system. A deeply held, well-refined, well-thought-through, tested belief system. And one of the real joys that my colleagues and I had in dealing with and working with Pat was that belief system was always the guide. It was not a fashionable thing. It was not something that just sounded good that day. Wasn't something that was approved in some way. It was a deeply held system of values and beliefs through which things were pushed, through which issues were pushed, through which actions were pushed, that defined then what the will you and you will call was all about. I will say one last thing, and that is in the last spring that I served in the state legislature, the Dalai Lama had just put out his most recent book at that time, and it was entitled, Ethics for the New Millennium. And when I talk about books written by holy people, I don't pretend to know what it is they really mean. And what I mean by that is to say I think that's presumptuous of me. All I can tell you is what I got out of the book, not what the author was trying to say necessarily. So what I got out of the Dalai Lama's book, Ethics for the New Millennium, was that if what you want to do is live an ethical life, you will live a compassionate life. And if what you want to do is choose to live that compassionate life, then what you will do is realize that in real time, at the present moment, what the other person wants with whom you are interacting is not happiness. That they want is the absence of pain. The way to live a compassionate life is to realize the other person needs and wants from you in that moment the absence of pain. So to live an ethical life, you will live a compassionate life. To live a compassionate life, you will be aware of this notion of what the other person wants. I only speak for myself in this regard. every interaction I had with Pat presented me with the absence of pain. And that allowed then for the communication and the will you will conversation to take place joyfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. That was very, very well expressed, very brilliant and very insightful. And actually gives us lots to think about to take home with us. Thank you for your years of service and carrying those thoughts and perspectives with you. And I do think they epitomize much of who Patty was and the legacy that she leaves. Now we're going to have another chapter of Patty's life presented from Brenda Griffin, who's the president of the NAACP Santa Cruz chapter. And Deborah Hill, is Deborah with you also? Okay. Well, she was the second VP of the NAACP Santa Cruz chapter. Brendan, please come up.
Good afternoon. Well, actually, Deborah is the one who has the history with Pat, but she's not here. But I have really enjoyed all of the stories and the songs that I've heard this afternoon. It's such a great testament to such a wonderful, wonderful woman. She was just amazing. She always had, well, as I said, I didn't get a chance to work with her that closely, but I would always see her out in the community. And whenever she would see me, she would stop and she would go. Because, you know, she wanted everyone to be working. Anyway. We do have a resolution for Pat. I do know that she loved the work of the NAACP. NAACP Santa Cruz County branch number 1071, Santa Cruz, California. Resolution of respect and honor to Patricia Pat Arnold. Whereas we join the family and community in mourning the past from our midst, Patricia Pat Arnold on February 3rd, 2018. Whereas Patricia Arnold was a long-standing member, civil rights activist, and supporter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Santa Cruz County. Whereas Patricia Arnold emphasized the language of human rights as a lens through which to view advocacy of equal rights and equal justice in her work with the NAACP and throughout the community. Whereas Patricia Arnold served the NAACP as a devoted volunteer with determination, enthusiasm, commitment, and business acumen. Therefore, let it be known that the NAACP Santa Cruz County branch, through its members and executive committee, are grateful for our dear sister Patricia Arnold's service, time, talent, and love as rendered to the NAACP Santa Cruz County branch. Now therefore, be it resolved that the NAACP Santa Cruz County branch, through its members and executive committee, are honored to bestow posthumously and to duly recognize Patricia Pat Arnold on the 17th day of March 2018 as an honorary lifetime member of the NAACP Santa Cruz County branch. Be it further resolved that this resolution will be entered into the permanent records of the NAACP Santa Cruz County branch and a copy furnished to her family. Thank you.
another wonderful testament to Patty. I remember going to a dinner some years ago at the, I think it was the Holy Peace Church on High Street. May have the name wrong. But Patty was being honored that evening by the NAACP for her work for and contributions of time and effort to the NAACP. And we're all, again, still better off because of what she's done and what she leaves as her legacy. Speaking of legacy, we're next going to hear from probably the most close legacy that Patty has, her daughter Linda, my wife.
First of all, I want to thank everyone here for coming today to honor the life of my amazing mother. And as so many have shared today, being productive came as naturally to Pat as breathing. So, at the age of 75, in the midst of a still busy life, it's not surprising that she became an author. And she wrote 3 autobiographical books, and then she did 4 mystery novels with the theme of bridge, which was one of her longtime passions. So, if any of you have read the books, you know that the main character of the books is actually Pat herself. So, I wanted to honor my mother today by letting her speak for herself through the voice of her literary character, the sharp-witted, bridge-playing, opera-loving, Irish sleuth, Catherine Malone, known to everyone as Kitty Malone. So, I think she'd like that. The first excerpt I'll read is from Murder in Duplicate, her first mystery. The door was held open as Kitty Malone strode into the Monterey Bridge Club. She felt her usual anxiety tempered with excitement as she pulled out her convention card and headed for the coffee and water pots. She'd brought her own Good Earth tea with a strong cinnamon flavor. She was 63, about the average age of the players in the club. Her matronly figure was topped by a pleasant face, framed with long, dark ash blonde hair, Lady Clairol Moon Hayes. That was one of her secrets. Her eyes twinkled, however, and darted around the room so she could quickly see who was there. Well, some bridge hands are played and some clues are left behind, but Kitty Malone has work to do. So she hopped into her Camry and pulled out on Thorn Street so she could get to David Avenue and take the shortcut to Highway 68. It was actually fun to go down that way, since she had the ocean in her sights as she barreled down the hill. She never got over the little thrill of the steep dips, and she couldn't help going a little too fast. She did like to drive fast. Not that she could do that on summer city streets, but after a few tickets on the freeway, she was constantly looking in her rearview mirror and scanning the side entrance for cops. Well, okay, so she solved that mystery. So the next excerpt is from the Ashland Psych murder. She's on her way to Ashland, Oregon with a friend, and Kitty Malone checked the speedometer again, trying to keep it under 75. Sarah Peters, her bridge partner and friend from Monterey, inserted a tape in the cassette player. "This one should be good," she said. "Great duets in Italian opera." "One of my favorites," Kitty responded, as she lapsed into a reverie while the fields of Northern California skimmed past. She was glad that she'd made this 2-week vacation possible for herself. The Monterey Herald called her an occasional writer, but she was expected to sell advertising to go with the story, and that's how she made her commission. It allowed her the freedom to make her own time. She felt a rush of joie de vivre, relaxing her shoulders against the back of the seat, relishing the break in a routine of well-ordered life. In each day in her activities of work, bridge, and community volunteerism, she planned something unique so that there was nothing repetitive about her life. So she solved that mystery too. And the last excerpt is from Murder in Paradise Park. And Kitty Malone has been driving through the park looking for clues. She does find a card that is a clue. But she assists somebody down by the river, and after she's leaving the river, she's driving away, she begins to reflect. She believed in a balance in her life, and ever since, she'd been active in progressive movements since she was a teenager. She'd never been burned out or discouraged when one issue or one favorite candidate was defeated. She looked on herself as a small part of a movement for greater good in the world. She thought of the river again and felt that she was dropping a pedal into the water with concentric circles moving out, with more pebbles of which she was only a small part. The waves got bigger and bigger. She had faith that eventually the waves would reach giant proportions and the world would be better, more humane, more peaceful. Though she had lived through some trying times, some bad wars, and she was more opposed to the present government than she'd ever been, she took an international view. Human conscience had been developing, and especially women's role in a forward movement. That's prescient. So, through the words of Kitty Malone, I believe Pat is sharing with us some of her own philosophy of how to live well. Life is a grand adventure. Work hard, be productive, but don't forget to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. And if you see a shortcut, take it. Engage the world around you with enthusiasm. Find balance. Stand up for what you believe. And always have faith in the great river of human kindness. I'm so proud to be her daughter. So I want to thank you all again for coming today. And one of the ways that I express my feelings best is through song. So I wrote a song for her, but as you can see, I'd never make it through. So I've asked my daughter Ariel to sing it for me, and it's called Silver-Haired Tiger.
Your life so courageously. always lived with joy and so fearlessly. And I'm grateful for those lessons that you taught to me. You were our fierce silver-haired tiger, and we loved you all your life. You were a freedom fighter, standing up for what you believed. Hey mama, I can feel you deep in my heart tonight. Your love, it still holds me, telling me that I'll be alright. The love we shared lives on inside of me. So run, tiger, run. Run, tiger, run. Run, tiger, run. Forever free. You were our fierce, silver-haired tiger, and we loved you all your life. You were free to fight. Hey mama, I can hear you in the song of the wind tonight.
Thank you, Ariel, for such a beautiful rendering, and Linda for writing such a beautiful song. You really epitomized your mom. Well, we're nearing the end of the program, and I want to thank everyone for being here and for all the presenters and the wonderful thoughts and expressions that you shared. There are now going to open up the opportunity for persons in the audience who want to share their thoughts, their comments about Patty. When we finish with that, then the lovely, wonderful voiced choir will be singing another song. And then Kate will be doing a closing blessing, so we can then complete the experience. There are also, so I don't forget to mention it, India Josie is preparing food that we'll be able to enjoy. And I believe you can go through the lobby area and into the community room to be able to partake. Or you can go through this door also. Thank you for the, the tip. Is that the better door to go through? Okay, or either. Okay. Through the back of the room, go that way. Front of the room, go this way. Does anybody want to stand up and express anything? Anina, please. And yeah, let's see, what time is it? Okay, yes. Try to keep your comments to 1 or 2 minutes so everyone has a chance. Thank you. Anina?
So before I begin to speak, I think I need to wear a different hat. I know
lot of you in the community, and I've known you for a long, long time. Most of you know I'm a real estate broker in town, but I also grew up with I would say, a very far left socialist, nigh on communist upbringing. And as a real estate broker, I don't even remember when this began. I mean, I've always been friends with Pat and loved Pat. I loved her as a raging granny, but I've been in real estate for 40 years, and it was a long, long time ago. Before my oldest daughter was born, that Pat called me and she said, "You need these maps." Yep, the blue maps. So every year Pat would call me and there would be the blue maps. And then after a while, Toby grew up, and pretty soon it was Toby calling for the blue maps. And you know what? I have to say that, I mean, I have boxes of blue maps. I have boxes from when I was at Wilson Brothers, and when I was at Vanguard, and when I was at David Ling, and I think Darryl Talbert. I have so many blue maps. And every year they would call and it would be time to buy the blue maps. And I could never say no. So, I mean, Toby, man, you know, you got that thing. You're just like, you know, and now you need it with the internet. Now I'm going to put you on the internet. And then you stopped, and then it was Pat again. And now I think it's going to be Ariel. But you know, I could never say no to those blue maps, because I knew that really my blue maps were supporting another part of all of us. And God bless Pat for keeping that going, and the family. And I'm going to miss her a lot. You know, no matter what, I got to speak to her once a year. At least, well, usually 4 or 5 times, because I was always busy and she'd just keep calling. So, you know, if she calls again, I'll let y'all know. I'll send out an email.
Okay, thanks. I just got my order corrected, or reordered. Anyone else? Thank you, Anita. That was really fun and lovely. Anyone else care to share? There's been so many things expressed about Patty that I think we've really done all of you have done quite a great job of evoking her memory, her spirit, and infusing this room with her sense of self and her sense of spirit. Oh, yes, good. We're going to have somebody else. Somebody from Scozy? Okay. Santa Cruz Opera Society. Yes. So that's what the I stands for, Scozy. I wonder what the I was. So when we finish the community sharing, then Kate will close and the ladies will sing in that sequence.
Well, Linda has covered the triumvirate, the first 3 of Pat's Shade of in her series, in her Kitty Malone series. And I thought that it would be remiss to leave out the 4th final act of this drama, of her mysteries, of her bridge mysteries. Because in this one, entitled The Queen of Spades, which is the name of an opera by Tchaikovsky, in which the protagonist is a compulsive gambler and card player, and the whole plot revolves around a secret way, a formula for winning at cards. And since this is an admixture, I don't know if you can see or not, of several
pages devoted to bridge hands, whether they be winning or losing, but the strategies are very carefully analyzed, and we have Kitty Malone as being an expert bridge player. And what struck me immediately with this book, number 4, is the fact that on the front the page, the disclaimer reads, "Any resemblance to actual events or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental." Then one turns the page to begin the actual text of the book. And what does that read? Well, it talks about Kitty Malone having attended the Live at the Met production at the theater downtown, because we have that now, thanks to one of our members' valiant efforts. It took her 2 years to convince all of the bureaucracy on the West Coast here in Santa Cruz County, as well as on the East Coast in New York from the Metropolitan Opera, to bring live HD productions of the Met to our little town. And this, as I say, took 2 years of activist kind of battling that would made Pat very proud to do herself, except it was a different member of our opera society. In any case, halfway down the page, having just disclaimed the fact that we exist, she says, "Oh, I forgot my scarf, I'll have to go back. Don't wait for me, I'll drive home and see you Sunday at SCOZI." Well, SCOZI is the acronym for Santa Cruz Opera Society, Inc., because we are incorporated, so that you can deduct your contributions, your enormous, vast contributions to our magnificent opera group, which now has, our treasurer happens to be here today, as well as our president. What do we have now, 59 members, I believe, yes. And that's all, thank you very much, but we meet in people's homes, and either you have a huge mansion. In fact, our treasurer once remarked, from now on we have to ask people not only your name and address, but how many square feet do you have? Because we are now in the process of cramming people in like the old Volkswagen cartoon, you know, how many opera lovers can you cram into a little living room somewhere. Well, we love meeting in people's homes because for us, opera is not a formal, frightening, imposing kind of experience, but it is part of our lifeblood, part of our life force. And it is an addiction, and it is a lifelong quest for understanding life and art and the cosmos, just a little thing like that. So Pat was, in this book, we have the confluence of 2 of her great life interests, aside from saving the world and humanity and making the status quo improved to an enormous nth degree. She loved opera, and she was very knowledgeable about artists who were worth supporting and loving. We played a little bit of Björling, who was one of her very favorite singers. Jussi Björling, the Swedish tenor, who was deemed to be the best singer, by the way, of the 20th century. And that's including Caruso and Elvis and all these other great singers. So we played a little of Jussi Björling coming in, but I must say that the acoustics here are not the most magnificent. So, but that was a flower song from Carmen, and that was another of Patty's great loves. So that's why we chose that as a little background. So Patty, ma chère, we are going to miss you enormously. Once again, she solves the mystery.
The only thing that if she were here, I would say to her, Patty, you made a member of the Opera Society into a murderer? I think, Doug, our treasurer, I think from now on, you have to really investigate people before you let them become that. Thank you very much.
Really wonderful. Thank you for sharing those words and bringing that other important aspect of Patty's life into our attention. Now, Kate, I think you're going to have a closing blessing. Oh, sorry. Oh, artist. Apologies. Yes.
Pat Arnold was my best friend. My writing partner. She was lovely and lovely. So I'll never meet another person like her.
Thank you, dear. We know that she loved you dearly.
I will remember in my heart.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Pardon? We're running kind of late.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should move. Because we have. Yes, thank you. Kate? Sorry, I'm not trying to be preemptive. And when Kate's finished the blessing, would you please come up and do the closing song? Thank you.
Thank you. I want to hear from everybody. Often these things are too short and too long, and we are ruled by a certain how long we can sit. Again, I'd ask everybody to join me and stand up. And I want to thank those all face the east. What direction? The south. I'm really sorry. I'm dependent on windows. I know where I am. Thank you, the serpent of the south. You wrap your golden oils around us. Teach us to shed the past as you shed your skin. And teach us to walk in the peaceful and in the beauty way. I want to thank the east, the rising sun, where new beginnings come from birth walls and all the gifts of the beginnings. Thank you with the east. And again, we thank the north, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, and all the ancient ones that have come before us. Let them come warm their hands by our fire and teach us to appreciate all the ones who have come before us and their wisdom, and those who will come after us, our children and our children's children. Gratitude to the winds of the west, where we go to rest, where death goes and comes from. Thank you, the winds of the west. And thank you, Mother Earth, that we are given this day to stand together and be grateful for each other's company. And thank you, Father Sky, for the sun, for Grandmother Moon, and for the star nations. We are grateful to be here this day and share each other's company and walk in the beauty way. Thank you. Thank our heart for themselves.
on the piano mic. On the back of your programs, there's the lyrics to what we're going to sing as a closing song called Longtime Son. And I just want to invite everybody to join us after a few times around. We can join our voices together in honor of Pat, amazing Pat. Test? No? Okay. I'll just sing without the mic.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. Join us. May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. We're gonna have a little song. May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. Guide your way
I want to thank my amazing women's singing circle for singing with us and for us and being part of this special day for
And thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming, sharing this memory, honoring of Patty. And we invite you to mingle and enjoy the food and share your own stories among each other of your experiences with Patty and what you will take forward with your life from your experiences with her. Thank you again.
All over this land, I'd sing
Really?